And I think people are starting to wake up to BLM's true colors. And, like they have a disregard for certain black lives. David Dorn, that black cop from St. Louis, do all black lives really matter? Not even all lives. Do all black lives really matter? Do
No, they
they?
don't. No,
No.
you gotta be trying to fight the police. You gotta have some type of criminal record. You gotta be on some type of drug. If you contribute anything positive to society as a black person, your life does not matter to other black people.
You know why? Because more than likely you're not going to be going at it with the
E-
cops.
Exactly, exactly.
All
They
they
can't.
want is criminals who go at it with the police and their lives matter.
Yeah, and I mean, my thing is that they try to use this as saying, oh, well, this is a sign of systemic racism. Okay, yes, I do think there is systemic racism in the criminal justice system. I mean, again, everybody knows the, crack coke disparity, right? Like the crack cocaine disparity. Everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not how you fight it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Police brutality in terms of people actually being killed is not a real issue, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not an issue worth protesting for. If you want to fix the criminal justice system, why the hell are you telling me to vote for the architect of the crime bill and a narc?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. You're complaining about a system that you want me to vote to keep in place.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. They're trying to get people to be blinded to what's actually going on, and they don't realize that they're going to end up supporting this political entity that's actually making all this happen and is actually making this come into fruition. Um, Again, it goes back to the fact that they're trying to play these Jedi mind tricks where they do things and they try to blame it on the opposition. And People are starting to realize that Black Lives Matter is not really taking in any input from the actual black community. Black Lives Matter has said all we're gonna do is attack cops. Anytime a cop kills a black thug, that's what we're gonna try to do to improve the black community. And like we've seen from those some Patriot videos, black people are pissed off. Certain black folks are livid because Black Lives Matter is not really listening to what they think are pressing issues in the black community, and they're just trying to take this, kind of, like spearhead this like offensive against law enforcement. And like we've said before, like all you're trying to do is attack the lowest level, the lowest rung of all this. Like we've said before, are you going to attack the mailman because the post office sucks?
Exactly.
Like this
Exactly.
is essentially what you're doing. Like
Exactly.
it goes back to your municipality. And again, where have we seen all this stuff
You see,
go
this
on?
is
What
what.
police departments? What's it run by Democrats?
See. It's funny when you bring up that
But it's
analogy.
Trump. Oh, Trump's the president, so Trump has to do with that cop in bumfuck nowhere, Wisconsin, Idaho. Who shoots up one black dude. Yeah, Trump called him up. Yeah. Trump was directly responsible for that somehow. Not even the Democrat mayor. It's always Trump, or even the Democrat governor. Even yeah, it always goes back to the White House. Like
When you bring up that analogy about attacking the mailman for the post office being shitty, it reminds me of when people try to say, well, when white people go and protest, with their guns and all this stuff, they don't go. This doesn't happen. Which this is an example of white supremacy. This is an example of how black people are treated differently. And I'm like, no, what white people do, white people are smart. They show up to the state legislature. They
mm-hmm,
show up on the Capitol steps.
mm-hmm,
They protest where the problem actually comes from.
wrong.
White people don't go in the street and destroy their own community. No, they pulling up to the state legislature, right? And if you pull up to the state legislature where your problem actually is coming from,
The source
and
of it all.
the
Yeah.
source of your problem, it's hard to paint this other picture where you have all this other stuff happening, right? White people, see, that's the thing, man. That's why it's a lack of leadership. and this is my problem with Black Lives Matter, their leadership fucking sucks. There's no centralized leadership, and the problem is that it's just a bunch of people kind of doing their own thing and taking these vague kind of directions from this larger organization, right? When white people have a problem with Corona, they showed up to the state legislature, right? Yes, they was armed, they had guns, but they wasn't shooting nobody. They wasn't threatening nobody. And I'm pretty sure there was some black people in the crowds too. You know, probably few and far between, but it probably was some black people in the crowds too. They don't cuss out the cashier. They ask to speak to the manager. You know what I'm saying? They ask for the manager. They're like, I ain't gonna waste my time talking at the cashier and then get mad and walk out and then, you know, be mad about why the store hasn't changed their policies. No, they go straight to the manager.
Exactly.
And if the manager can't they do it, they call corporate. That's how it works.
Exactly.
If you protest at the police station, if you protest at the state legislature, if you protest at the mayor's office, none of this will happen. They can't pin all this violence on you because it's organized. That's the difference. You want to say and try to say white people get treated differently? No, white people not being treated differently. What's happening is white people know how to organize. They know how to get shit done.
White people don't get treated differently. They just go about it differently.
They go about it differently. They go about it in a way. Exactly. They go about it in a way where you can't have all this violence and protest be filmed because they're not being violent. They're going to the state legislature. They're going to the Capitol Hill. They got their little guns and stuff. I get that. I understand that. But they're going directly to the source. But
the guns are more symbolic. Like, they're not actually firing.
It is symbolic. It's not like they out there putting the guns on the police. Well, you know, they yelling in the police face and the police not doing anything. Yeah, it happens. The Black Lives Matter supporters yelling in the police face and they don't do anything. There's plenty of videos of that. Yeah. That's not the issue. The issue is when they start destroying property and start trying to attack these police officers. That's the issue. But you don't see that from right-wing protests because they're organized. They know what the issue is and they go after the issue. They're not going to destroy their own community. They're going to go cause problems for the state legislature, for the politicians.
They're going to go to the movers and shakers, to the people who can actually make change.
Yeah. And it just bothers me because people are not, I ain't going to say not smart enough. It's just like, dude, take the emotion out of it. Take off the race goggles and look at what are they actually doing versus what does a right-wing protest against Corona look like versus a left-wing protest against police brutality look like. A left-wing protest against police brutality looks like a bunch of people going in the streets just
kicking and screaming.
Not even at the police station. Again, if y'all go to the police station.
Going to Target and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Stop going to Target. Go to the police Target. Go to the state legislature and protest there. Don't go anywhere else. Set up a barricade around yourself.
Don't go loot the gas station.
Don't go loot the gas station. Set up a barricade around yourself and do it. I mean, like, you see jobs like when teachers go and protest, right, for higher wages, guess what? They go to the state legislature. They do it peacefully. Every other form of protest is peaceful.
Local town hall, yeah.
Yeah. There's a blueprint for how to protest peacefully, but they don't do it. And then it's funny, there's a black militia force called Not Fucking Around Coalition.
Oh, the NFAC? Yes.
And it's like, they want to try to say that, okay, well, white people with guns.
Grandmaster J.
Not Fucking Around Coalition can walk around with their assault rifles and they ain't getting shot up. Mm-hmm. So what's your argument?
Well, just really quick, I mean, where are they? Like, where's their stronghold? Like, what are they actually even doing?
I don't even know, bro. I watched a video on them, and I was like, bro, they was like, oh, we straight ex-military, and like when you actually start looking at this dude did a video. That dude that you
duty country, yeah.
That dude that you said he did a video. He showed it like the guns were jammed up, like uniform dirty, like
people out of shape.
Like people out of shape, like it's like, bro, these ain't no ex-military, bro. These just some regular niggas off the
These are some clowns.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but again, man, it's like my whole point of bringing them up is that people want to say, well, white people can show up with their guns and nothing happens. Like, well, Not Fucking Around Coalition came out with their guns and assault rifles. Did they get shot up? No. They made all types of threats. They said everything with a gun in the face of law enforcement. and in the area, and they did not get shot up. Again, if what you say is true, not fucking around coalition would have been pieced, deuced by the
literally
on site.
like because basically if they did the equivalent of what y'all are doing, they would just go around shooting up, just going around like shooting up white people, shooting up cops, which they're not doing as yet from what I heard. So you're trying to compare apples to oranges, and I mean I get exactly what you're saying with what they should actually be doing with these protests. They should set up camp, like fence themselves in around the police station, or even better around town hall, and just berate verbally. I mean, these people, if they want to, if they want to be as aggressive as possible, but not being physically violent, do that. That's why it's so hard for people to get behind this, because people know that you looting these businesses, these mattress shops, these mom and pop, restaurants, or these mom and pop, convenience stores. Like they know that has nothing to do with your narrative. All you're doing now is just stealing shit. And and you want to call it reparations? That's when people you lose.
Yeah. They wanna. So the thing is about that, Leo.
People get hella pissed off when they call it reparations, bro. I've actually talked to a dude who said I despise that shit. Like, that's not a good move.
So the thing about that, Leo, to do something like that requires an actual plan, and there is no plan, and because there's no leadership, and when there's no leadership, there's no plan, and when there's no plan, you get what's happening right now, right? I'm sympathetic to the fighting systemic racism. I don't believe in fighting it the way they're fighting it, but if you have a plan, you're gonna do a lot better in terms of getting what you want. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have any real leadership, Black Lives Matter does not have any real leadership. And what happens is that this is what happens. People just kind of do whatever, and then you end up with just chaos.
It's just sporadic. Unorganized, and by
that's
definition,
not what the civil rights movement
chaotic.
was. That's not what the civil rights movement was. That's not even what Malcolm X was doing, right? They had a centralized leader that controlled and that dictated what the ideology and the plan of the organization and movement was. We don't have that. We have just kind of some desperate, pieces of, groups around the country that call themselves Black Lives Matter that kind of do what they want to do.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point too. Look, so the big cities makes sense, but you're telling me they had a bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters, like a Black Lives Matter movement in Kenosha, Wisconsin? How did those guys drop everything that they were doing and all buy plane tickets to Kenosha that same day? Like, how did they all? And over half of the arrests were out of state. So
funding.
Yeah, funding. Yeah, it's funding. Yeah, like, how are these people? How did they react to that literally the same day?
Yeah,
like Sunday.
Jacob Blake, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Yeah, how many Negroes live out in Wisconsin? I mean, let's be real. I mean,
not even in Milwaukee, which is like a real urban area.
Well, we talking about 100,000, 150,000 people in Kenosha, like.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, that's probably mostly white folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's just people flying in from out of state, or it's like criminals who've been let out because of Corona, or it's some of the like African Americans there who are just angry at the system. But again, where do most of the people who are out of state get this funding from? I mean, because you're not going to go in and wreck shit and know that you have a chance of being arrested without knowing that you're being compensated for it. I mean, come on now. Come on. So I think that speaks for itself. Really quick, though. So I think you're pretty pleased with the rise in black support for Trump. With that article that came out from Washington Times, our good old buddies at Washington Times, saying that Trump's support for blacks has risen 60%.
Yeah, man. No.
From blacks.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's still down in the dumps, but it's just an awakening of people realizing that this movement on the left is not for us, right? Like, this movement of this victimhood mentality, this movement that's been hijacked by feminist groups, the LGBTQ community, and white liberals, that doesn't have anything to do with us. There's no black male leadership in Black Lives Matter. There's only black male martyrs. That's the only thing I mean, again, the website doesn't even mention anything about fatherhood. And people want to try to get on Black Lives Matter and be
that goes back to them trying to destroy the nuclear family.
Yeah, they want to get on, they don't really want to destroy nuclear family. I'm like, if a bunch of black men are reading the Black Lives Matter website and that's the conclusion that they come away with, you might want to start including something about black fatherhood in there, because you mentioned a bunch of other groups. You mentioned the LGBT community. You mentioned something about cisgender, something. I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about
terms
taking down. Yeah, you mentioned taking down the patriarchy. You mentioned a bunch of things that doesn't have anything to do with a black man, and then you want to say that you're trying to essentially redefine a nuclear family, and you're trying to convince me that that's in my best interest. Come on now. I mean, you got a piece that you can't. I'm not stupid. People think you want, and that's the thing about these people, bro. They say one thing, and then when you try to say, is this what you mean? Nah, I don't mean anything like that. We don't mean that.
When they try to call them out on it, they try to like give like an academic description.
Yeah, they
of
try to act like they have some academic definition. Like, for example, defund the police. Defund the police doesn't really mean defund the police. It means redirect money from the police back into community programs. So you're defunding the police.
You're taking away funds and directing it to other things.
Other people, exactly. And it's like, do you know what Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that white lives don't matter and that all lives don't matter? It means that all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. So why don't you just name it All Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter? You should have just named it All Lives Matter from the get-go.
And by definition, if you're saying Black lives don't matter yet, then you're saying those lives don't matter yet either.
Yeah, so take a page out of the politician's book. When they name a bill, they always name it out to something that you can't disagree with. You can't disagree with the Freedom Bill, bruh.
Yeah.
Like, you can't disagree with All Lives Matter.
It's a proxy for
that. But you can't disagree with Black Lives Matter, but it creates a divisiveness. Where it's like, if you don't acknowledge this movement, or if you don't acknowledge this, then you're a racist. Because Black Lives Matter is really not really about black lives. It's more about the LGBT community, feminism, and whatever else they talking about.
And Marxism.
Yeah, and that too. So, I mean, it's one of those things, just like they try to get these academic definitions for what they're moving.
To try to think that they can outsmart you when it's really just some bullshit.
Yeah, you're not outsmarting me, bro. I know what you're saying. I know 100% what you're saying. I don't agree with.
They're acting like sleazy lawyers.
They are acting like sleazy lawyers. They are. They try to, again, dude, why you name a movement? Why don't you name your movement, yo defund the police movement? You should have named it Reform the Police. It's
just as simple, 2 syllables. Just said a defund, reform the police. Just 5 syllables, same thing.
Yeah, but like I said,
you named it defund for a reason.
You named it defund for a reason because you mean you want to take funds away from the police department. That's what you want to do, right? Like, stop trying to beat around the bush about what your true agenda is. That's your true agenda, and that's also another thing when you think about it too. It's like y'all sitting here complaining about these local police and y'all trying to defund the police. So what do you want to happen? What do you want to happen? You want there to be no police in your communities?
So it can be a hellhole, essentially.
Or do you want the government to step in and control the police? Because that's your two options.
Federal police. Yeah,
that's realistically the 2 options. That's where you're going, right? This whole defund the police option, this whole defund the police movement, there's only 2 outcomes. The first outcome is that there's no police in your community, which you don't want. Or the second outcome is that the federal government steps in and becomes your police. Those are the only options.
Literally, the federal government directly polices everything that happens in the whole country.
Yes, and that's what these people are asking for, and they don't even know it.
Oh no,
they don't even know it, because essentially, when you do this, when you make this, this is not a national movement. This should not be a national movement. This should be a local, grassroots,
isolated movement in each individual community with their own regional leaders.
Exactly, because when you make it a national movement and you make it something that the federal government has to get involved with, now you're introducing the possibility of the federal government coming in and now being your police. And people don't understand that. You don't want a federal police. You don't want a federal police, right?
Absolutely not.
So
you do not want the state solely overseeing all the altercations on every street in America.
Exactly, and that's
And
why
have it to be centralized, because now it's a lot much easier for them to impose on you and for them to, garner, for them to attain authoritarian rule, which you don't want. Yeah.
Yeah, and most black people don't want to defund the police. Black people, they want police in the community. Anytime I've been in the hood, if I see a police officer, I feel safe.
Safe.
That's not the narrative that these people are going trying to promote. I've always felt safer around a police officer than I felt when there's no police around. It's just that,
especially if you're in a neighborhood that you can tell is kind of sketchy.
Exactly, yeah. And I've had run-ins with the police, right? I've had run-ins with the police that could be classified as, racial profiling. I'm not necessarily gonna say it was, but some people would classify it as that. I've had those run-ins.
Like, basically what you're saying is, by today's definition, you could easily, say that it was racial profiling.
Yeah, I could easily say that. But even despite that, I would rather have police around in those neighborhoods than not have them around, because I do feel a lot safer. If I'm going into a neighborhood that I feel is sketchy, I would want to have police around. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way. And I feel like that contributes to the rise of black support for Trump and the conservatives, because a lot of people are gonna look at that and be like, nah, bro, we can't get behind this not having police around. Like that ain't gonna cut it.
Because then God knows what can happen to you if you're in an area like that.
Because that doesn't defeat the poverty. And that's why a lot of this stuff comes.
Yeah, that's another thing. It doesn't actually do anything for the real issues that nobody brings up. Yeah,
exactly. If anything, you should really want to increase funding for the police, because you guys keep talking about how police have lack of training. First of all, most of the people that say this have no idea what police training get. What training.
They have no idea what they go through.
Exactly, they have no idea what they go through. But you really should want increased funding for the police, because if you
what's
guys
that going to do? That's going to improve training.
That's going to improve training, because you guys apparently want them to be SEAL Team 6. Like, that's what they want the police force to be.
Every police department in the country, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, they want every police department in the country to be SEAL Team 6, but yet you telling me you trying to take money out of that pocket. Where's the leadership?
Greg.
Where's the leadership? It doesn't make sense. It just don't make sense, man. But anyways, we're sending black support for Trump because of all the things we just talked about, and I think it's gonna keep rising, man. I think that black people returning back to our original roots when it comes to being conservative and Republicans. Black people, the original party of the black man.
Major political realignment coming our way.
Yeah, it is.
If enough people wake up.
Yeah, and people are waking up to that. The more people learn, I've been knee deep in research, really, 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 getting into this. Mm-hmm. And it's just coming more apparent every single day that, it is imperative that we return back to the Republican Party, at least until the Democrats get their shit together.
So that neither party neither party takes the black vote for granted.
Exactly. Neither party takes a black vote for granted, but more importantly, the conservative viewpoint and the Republican viewpoint on social values is what the black community needs to return to make that next step, because we're never going anywhere with this victimhood mentality. To pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality and values that comes from the conservative party is what we actually need. And people kind of get mad about that and be like, well, the system's holding me down, blah, 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 blah. Well, again, if you do it like every other immigrant group does and you practice group economics, the system wouldn't be that much of an issue.
The same skin color, but since they have a different mentality, it's a little different.
How are Africans so successful? And they every time you look at these
and they look just like, and they have the same skin color as us.
Skin color. And when they go, all these Ivy League schools, most of the black people they accept are Africans. And that's how they boost their statistics. They don't have a problem letting in Africans. They ain't really let no real black people come in there, but they'll let Africans in there every day of the week. Why? Why is that? Because Africans have a different mindset and culture. And again, one of the things, like I said, I'm gonna make a video talking about victimhood and Jamel Hill. She did an interview with Vlad TV, and he asked her about Akon's stance, that basically saying that, remember, Akon is African, and that Akon basically saying that black people focus too much on slavery, which I 100% agree with.
Of course.
Right? And that's the difference in mentality. Akon has said, yeah, in Senegal, there's a history of slavery, and, you know, it happened, but you can't move forward when you have the weight of the past on your shoulders. And you want white people to take that weight off your shoulders, and it's never going to happen. It's not the white man's responsibility to take that weight off your shoulders. You have to take that weight off your shoulders yourself.
You have to you have to break chains yourself.
You have to break your own chains. But people like Jamel Hill and these people that's pushing this victimhood mentality want white people, they're so-called oppressors, right? They got Stockholm syndrome. They want their oppressors to let them go.
They want the people who so-called put the chains on you in the first place to just let you go.
It off. And it's like, no, that's stupid. That's dumb. You got to take your own chains off. It's never gonna happen. We fought a civil war for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. But people ignore all those aspects in history and all that historical evidence and all the data and all these issues that we're seeing, come to a boiling point, today. So, it'll be interesting to see how, that rise in black support for Trump will kind of progress through these coming weeks and these next 2 months. I think it'll be crucial, especially for a Trump victory. So